Testing, 1, 2, 3. Is the sound carrying to the back? Okay, so once again, first I really want to thank Venerable Bong Lien for hosting the BGR Connecticut walk here this morning. He does this every year, and we're all deeply grateful to him and the temple for hosting it. And we're also deeply grateful to the Lao Buddhist community that comes every year to support the walk by preparing the meal, the midday meal. And of course I have to mention Alice and Joe, who took the initiative probably many years ago of starting this Connecticut Walk to Feed the Hungry. And every year she has been the one who has taken the initiative and seeing that all of the preparations are made for the walk. I remember last year when we had the walk, when I saw the photographs of us in the walk, we were all sitting huddled in our warm coats with hats as we sat outside. Today we thought it would be a nice, cool autumn day, ideal weather for a walk. But it seems that we're having now mid-July in late September. Yeah, so as I mentioned before we started walking, we started Buddhist Global Relief in the year 2008. And the reason why we started Buddhist Global Relief, basically it goes back to the time, the years after I had come back. I lived in Sri Lanka for more than 20 years. Then I came back to the United States in 2002. And when I observed the way Buddhism was being sort of practiced and developed in the US, especially amongst the Western Buddhists, the whole focus was on developing, say, mindfulness or other types of meditation practice as a way to have a peaceful mind and to be able to lead a happy, contented life. But it seemed to me that there are certain ethical dimensions to the Buddha's teaching that were not being fully developed and adequately applied. And this was the way the Buddha's virtues of loving kindness and compassion should be applied to the situations in which we find ourselves in the contemporary world. You know, we live at a time when there is enormous wealth in the world, tremendous wealth, and yet that wealth is being extremely divided in extremely disproportionate ways, so that too large a proportion of humanity lives in really degrading, debilitating poverty, while a very, very small number of very privileged, powerful elite live in extreme luxury, and then a smaller segment under them live fairly comfortable middle-class lives. But too many people are living in this really debilitating, destructive poverty under conditions which provide them very little opportunity to emerge and to be able to lead fulfilling lives. And so I thought that it's part of our responsibility as Buddhists to do, as Buddhists dedicated to these ideals of universal love and compassion, to do something to transform the living conditions of those who are living the most difficult lives, living under the most difficult conditions. And so I wrote some articles of my reflections on the situation, and some of them had been picked up by some of my friends and students. And then we started to have discussions about what could we do to make a difference. And so we started, as a result of these discussions, we decided to begin a Buddhist relief organization. And we started with a very, very lofty and noble ambition, which was to provide relief to communities around the world who are suffering from social neglect, disasters, and extreme poverty. But before long, we came to see that this was too broad an aspiration. And so we realized that it was necessary to narrow down our mission and to make it more specific. And one of the factors, is sort of the manifestations of global poverty that came to our attention, is the persistence and the prevalence of chronic hunger and malnutrition. The numbers of people living in situations of food insecurity around the world. At that time when we started, 2008, it was something like 900 million people, close to 1 billion people. Now the number has gone down to somewhere around 800 million. But over the last year, according to a report I just read, it's been slowly going up again because of, on the one hand, conflict in poor countries, between poor countries, which leads to the destruction of the neglect of agricultural cultivation, and also because of climate change. Okay, so we have some, say, 850 million people afflicted with this problem of chronic hunger and malnutrition. And every year, some 6 million people, more than half of them children, die from illnesses related to malnutrition. Okay, so when we consider these statistics, this shocking extent of hunger and malnutrition, we decided to make that the specific focus of Buddhist Global Relief. When we started, we thought that the way to address the problem of hunger and malnutrition was by sponsoring projects which would bring direct food aid to those who are hungry. And so that was our initial projects took that direction. But as we started to inquire into what are some of the underlying roots of hunger and malnutrition around the world, we came to see that one of the most major contributing factors is the subordinate status of girls and women in many traditional cultures. And so we came to see that one of the most effective ways to tackle the problem of hunger and malnutrition is by promoting the status of girls and women. And in the case of girls, what is the most effective way to improve their status? A test. Education. Exactly, 100% correct. Education. And so we made this a major focus of our projects, to promote the education of poor girls. And one of, I consider this maybe our flagship project in that area. You see, the way we work, we don't have so many people trained in food development and so forth to send to all of these countries. But the way we work is by finding organizations that are working in the various countries where we want to launch our projects. And then we form partnerships with them, and then together we sort of formulate projects that will help to address the problem of hunger and malnutrition. And so in Cambodia, we have a partner, which is actually US-based, but they work in Cambodia. The partner's name is Lotus Outreach. And they had developed a project, or a program, which they call GATE. GATE is an acronym with the first initials, representing the first initials of the phrase, Girls Access to Education. So the way this project works, or program works, they find girls who have been going to school from very, very poorest stratum of society, who are in danger of being forced to drop out of school in order to begin working to support their families. And in many traditional cultures, there's a kind of prevalent belief that girls don't need an education, the education should go to the boys. And so girls, when they reach their teenage years, are under a lot of pressure to drop out of school. But the girls don't want to drop out. They want to continue with their education. So this project combines food security with promoting the education of the girls. And the way that works is that through Lotus Outreach, we provide delivery of rice to the families, a monthly portion of rice, stacks of rice to the family of the girl, on condition that they allow the girl to continue in school. If they force the girl to drop out of school, the supply of rice is cut off. And so this is a kind of inducement for them to keep the girls in school. And so we started this partnership with Lotus Outreach pretty much in our second year, in 2009. And now, after that GATE program proved so successful, so many girls were completing the equivalent in Cambodia of what we would call high school. They wanted to go on for their next further stage for advanced education. And so Lotus Outreach started another program as a successor or follow-up to GATE. First they were calling this Gateways, but just last year they changed the name. They call it now Catalyst, which is an extremely complex acronym also. I don't remember what it stands for. But basically what this program does is to provide scholarships and food assistance to girls who have completed the GATE program, graduating high school, and now are ready to go on to college and university. And so for the last, I think about the last 4 years, together with Lotus Outreach, we have been sponsoring this program. And so far, about 200 girls have graduated from college as a result of this program. And I've seen photographs of the family conditions of those girls. The so-called houses are virtually shacks on stilts. And the environment looks extremely poor. But now these girls have completed college. They've studied to become nurses, teachers, scientists, social workers. Maybe some will even be going on to postgraduate school to become medical doctors. So in this way, I think this kind of this program is nurturing or helping to nurture amongst the girls what would be the next generation of leaders in Cambodia. Okay, so another area in which we could contribute to alleviating the problem of global hunger is through supporting women in their aspirations to start right livelihood projects. And what we found actually, and this is somewhat interesting, when we think of farmers in the United States, we think of the big tough man out there in the field on his tractor, working the grounds with his tractor, or with his harvester, bringing in the harvest. But in most of the traditional world, Asia, Africa, probably a majority of the farmers are women. And now, agriculture is not only a source of income for these families, farming families, but agriculture, depending on which way it swings, can be either a major contributor to global warming or one of the most effective responses to global warming, to climate change. And that is because the industrial model of agriculture, which is the model that dominates in the United States and in Europe, utilizes tremendous amount of fossil fuels, as well as of chemical inputs, which depend upon petroleum, and also the various methods of preserving and processing the food also consume a great amount of energy. But there are alternative models of agriculture which actually help to sequester carbon and are capable of producing crops at rates, at amounts that can compete with and even surpass the amounts that are possible with industrial agriculture, and yet without exhausting the fertility of the soil and without contributing to a polluted environment. And so what we've been doing through a large number of the projects with partner organizations is supporting women farming communities to learn these environmentally sustainable methods of agriculture. And so we have projects like this in India with Oxfam India, a branch of Oxfam, in Cambodia with an organization called Rachana, in Vietnam through a university which trains farmers in ecologically sustainable agriculture, in Haiti, Kenya and Malawi in Africa. There are still other countries, but those are a few. Okay, apart from poor girls, but also in general, we aim to promote the education of children without distinction of girls, boys and girls. And so we have projects that support the education of children in Bangladesh. And what we've been working in Bangladesh with an organization called Monogar. It's in the Chittagong hill tracts of Bangladesh. The Chittagong hill tracts, the population there is predominantly, probably 90% Buddhist. Like those are the old Indian Buddhists when they migrated after the Buddhism was driven out from India, so they migrated to this particular section of Bangladesh. But it's a very, very poor part of Bangladesh, which to begin with is a very poor country. And there was a long, drawn-out conflict between the peoples of the Chittagong hill tracts and the mainlanders of Bangladesh, in which many people were killed and many children were left orphans or with just one parent. And so there's an organization that was established by a group of Buddhist monks called Monogar. And we've had an ongoing partnership with them over, I'd say, 6 or 7 years, since about 2010. And recently, we learned that the boy students, the girl students on this side, they have their own dormitory, a sort of solid, well-established dormitory. But the boy students were living in rather makeshift buildings, which were deteriorating every few years. And so we've almost single-handedly, we are sponsoring the construction of a permanent dormitory for the boy students. So that's one kind of educational project. Another educational project is in Haiti, where a terrible, as probably all of you know, in 2010, the terrible earthquake struck right very close to the capital, Port-au-Prince, and many, many children lost both parents or one parent. They lost their homes. And so we entered into a partnership with an organization, a US-based organization called the Fwwp Foundation, which has a partner in Haiti called Narive, which would provide every day a solid, substantial midday meal to children who were poor and without any access to food. And so children would come from miles away and line up to obtain their food for the day. But then the Fwwp Foundation realized that to improve the status of the children, it's not enough just to provide them with food, but they also need food for the mind. And education in Haiti, in the main schools, the government-run schools, is very relative to the country, to the standards of the country, is very expensive. And so the Fwwp Foundation began to sponsor the construction of a school that would be a free school, first grade or maybe kindergarten to 8th grade. And they contributed the funds for the construction of the school itself, but Buddhist Global Relief has contributed the funds for the furnishing of the school, for the furnishing with all the tables, chairs, computers, other requirements in the school, and also for the funding of salaries for the administration and teachers. So in this way, hopefully we're helping to provide education for a generation that perhaps will find the opportunity even to go on to advanced levels of education and help to uplift the living standards in Haiti. Okay, so this is just a sort of very brief overview of some of the projects of Buddhist Global Relief and the way we work. But so that is the way we work as far as our projects go. But as how we are sponsored, you know, we don't have large corporate sponsors. We don't have things like the John D. Rockefeller Foundation behind us, or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or the Steve Jobs Foundation, or whatever. But we depend very much, virtually almost entirely, upon the generosity of individual private donors. And so the main fundraising activity through which we obtain the funds that we need to promote, to sponsor these projects, is through these walks to feed the hungry. And so, as I said, each year we have like about 10 walks around the U.S. And this, through these walks and then through the regular donations that come in from people over the year, you know, we started out, when we started in 2008, we started with an account, I think it was about $40,000. And that came through primarily through two fairly generous donations. And now, over the years, we've been developing quite successfully, so that over the last 2 years or so, the amount that we've been spending on projects has come to $560,000. So that's about $500,000 a year on projects. And every year we have, when we started 2008, we began with 3 or 4 pilot projects, very small scale projects. And we had one in Sri Lanka, one in Vietnam, one in Burma, Myanmar. I think there might have been one in India. My memory not so clear about that. Now, over the last few years, we usually have about 25, 26, 27. I think this year we have 29 projects going. And then apart from the regular projects, one thing I have to make clear, BGR is not an emergency relief organization. So whenever there's disasters around the world, people write to us and say, there's a disaster here, calamity there. Can we give to you to provide relief for those projects? You know, but we don't function in that way. If there are disasters, we try to provide a small emergency donation to a larger relief organization. But to operate an emergency relief organization, one needs an account, an operating account in the millions of dollars. and that we don't have. And other organizations can do that much more effectively than we can. The way we work is through trying to develop these small-scale, focused projects in which we are working in a true partnership with the partner organization so that we provide them with our input about the way the project should be structured, and then they provide reports to us about how the project is developing. So that is the way we work. And that, in that way, we don't need accounts, operating expenses in the multi-millions of dollars. But our projects are usually in the range of $10,000 annually, $20,000. The bigger projects might be $50,000 a year. And to sponsor these projects, we depend, as I said, primarily on the generosity of the people who learn about Buddhist global relief, who resonate with our mission and want to keep it turning. And so the walk is probably the major source of income through the year. But we also have people giving regular donations, either periodically throughout the year, or if one wants to, one could become a monthly donor. There's facilities for doing that on our website. And so I want to urge people here, I don't really like to say give, 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 but I really want to urge people to first, as Buddhists, to recognize that I would say Buddhist Global Relief is one of the very few Buddhist organizations that is out there on the global stage, putting compassion into really effective, life-transforming action. And so I want to urge people to bring forth a heart of loving kindness, compassion, and generosity, and to give, to keep this organization, to enable it to continue sponsoring projects like this and expanding the range of these projects. Okay, so again, once again, I have to thank Achan and the Lao community for providing the meal, all of you for turning out to participate in this walk. It's a beautiful September day when you might have decided to do something else, to go on a nature hike, or to go to the beach, or to go swimming, or boating, but for coming and participating in this walk. And again, to thank Alice and Joe for being the spearhead of this walk. Anybody else like to speak some words? Allison, don't hang back there.
I just want to say, Bhante mentioned my name so many times. I feel so, I'm a little bit embarrassed because I know most of the work is done by you. The only thing I did is I sent out emails and I tried to ask everybody to come. And most of the people are doing the most work. Ajahn is doing this, and Bhante is promoting this idea, and John, the photographer, and also my friend Vicky and the other John and everybody who is shipping, and Hungkr, who is the ones orchestrate the delicious meal every year. So
bravo!
So everybody here, you are doing the contribution. I'm the one just sending out the email, just a finger click. Okay. So I want to say thank you very much for being here, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully next year we will try to make it even better. Thank you. Somebody lose their key.
No. Nope. Similar. Nope.
It's not yours? Is that a Mercedes?
That is mine.
It's not. Out of the safe. Sorry.
You want to do it? Okay.
I want to say thank you everyone. Thank you Bhante to accept my temple and our community at Connecticut for support about the hunger war. Every year I try to continue again and again. Thank you so much. Today, special for day because my friend, my lawyer here, Soko, he helped me. Can you stand please?
Thank you.
No need to mention.
Yes. He helped me about stay in United States. Very difficult.
Oh, he was your
Yes.
visa lawyer.
Yes. He helped me a lot. He don't charge my money. Free everything. Because I very appreciate to everybody to come to continue again and again. When you have time, every Wednesday 6 to 8, you can come to join meditation or talk, something like that in my temple. Because maybe you can help me and teach me about English and meditation too. Thank you again. Thank you so much. From Korea, Korea temple. Say something, please.
Thank you. I just want to thank Bhante for inviting me to come and for spending time with everybody today, walking and sharing a meal. We're grateful to have a meal, and I was mindful while I was eating of people who may not have something to eat. So just we'll continue to think about that, I think, for the rest of the day. And maybe you want to practice a little fasting and feel what it feels like for your stomach to grumble a little bit when you're hungry. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Everyone, want to talk? Okay, please.
I think I don't need it. I just want to say I'm not a Buddhist and I don't meditate, but I've been attending this event now for about 5 years or 6 years, however long it's been going on, and it has become the highlight of my fall. I really enjoy being here with all of you and for the work that you do, and it's very meaningful, so thank you very much.
Can I mention, because I know you guys are all local, Ajahn Bourne has a Wednesday night meditation.
Yes.
And also, Ajahn Dao, do you have a meditation in your area? Do you have
Agenda,
No, Ajahn.
Reading Meditation Center. Reading. Yes.
Yeah, Reading. Also, there's another meditation center in Reading that Ajahn Dao is doing. So I just want to let you know that Connecticut has plenty places you can meditate and you can go to find your refuge.
And John too.
And John too. John is
Yeah.
not a photographer. He
yes.
actually is a Dharma teacher.
Yes.
We have a Sunday night group in Willimantic for anyone who's interested. 7 o'clock. It's on the Eastern Connecticut State University campus. Talk to me if you want to know more.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in all this network, please, if you have somebody who meditate, I know that, and also, would you want to tell people your organization? Are you from
Sure.
Connecticut?
So I come from Daeonsa Buddhist Temple in New Hartford, Connecticut. New Hartford. So it's a little bit of a drive from here, but a very nice place to practice.
Bobby, you too? You can say something? Yes, please.
I'm just a little cog in the Dharma teacher order, and we're headed under Venerable Law in Houston, whose temple was flooded. But we meet in West Hartford about every other Saturday, and it's a Dharma study course. with, we do some meditation, but it's primarily if you want to go into the Dharma. We're so happy to use some of Bhikkhu Bodhi's book